Hello, everyone. Welcome to EyeSee's webinar on CPG shopping post-COVID. What will the new normal really look like? My name is Sanya, and today I will be speaking with Jonathan Asher, EyeSee's Executive Vice President, and Karen Kraft, Senior Consumer Insights Manager at Johnsonville, who brings over 20 years of experience and expertise in the CPG industry to our conversation today. Thank you both for being here and welcome.
Hi, Sonia. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Sonia. It's great to be here. And Jonathan, it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Appreciate you joining us.
Quick housekeeping info from my side. Our session today will run for approximately 20 minutes. If you have any questions that come up during the session, feel free to ask them in the chat box on the right-hand side, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So today we will focus on shopping in the post-COVID era. We hear so much confident talk about the changes that have taken place and predictions about what's yet to come. But I feel that the answers are not so obvious and that there are plenty of opposing trends at play. So there are three areas that we will discuss today: shopping behavior, brand choices, and product choices. So without further ado, Jonathan, can you tell us a bit more about the tension between the changes we're seeing develop right now?
Sure, Sonia. One day in March, and it's hard to say exactly which day in March, everything changed, suddenly and quite dramatically, as the realities of COVID-19 became clear. In addition to many usual behaviors coming to a stop, new ones emerged, old ones re-emerged, and some that were just beginning to take hold saw their adoption accelerated. Now the question is, which of these will stick once society fully reopens and a vaccine becomes widespread? In the world of CPG, some of the shifts to consider include whether online shopping is finally embraced, if smaller brands or innovations will be able to break through the stranglehold of established top-tier brands, and if traditional processed comfort foods are really back, just to name a few. Many predictions have been made of late about these behaviors based on the early shifts. Most are quite confident about one or more of these changes being permanent. I would caution that for just about every indication of a behavior moving one way, there's an equally compelling argument to be made for it going in the opposite direction. And to be prepared for the new realities to come, marketers should neither be hobbled by uncertainty and do nothing, nor be overly bold and invest too heavily and too soon in the one path that seems certain at the moment. It's best to consider several reasonable possibilities, plan for the most likely, and stay connected with shoppers to gauge how their attitudes, perceptions, and behaviors will continue to transform over time.
Thanks. And when it comes to the way we shop, there are so many factors and moving parts that make up a decision of where to shop. And with COVID, things got even more complicated. How did this crisis impact consumers choosing between shopping online and offline?
During the crisis, some consumers opted to shop online because physical stores were closed, or because they wanted to avoid contact with other shoppers or store staff, or they were concerned about surfaces that might be contaminated. Some predictions suggest that now that shoppers have made the leap to online, it's unlikely that they'll ever revert back to their old ways entirely. We see some leading indications of this, such as the quote from Mark Schneider, Nestle's CEO, where he said, "The coronavirus is likely to be a breakthrough event for online sales of food and beverages, as people who previously would not have bought groceries online discover how convenient it is." Or this mention from business consultants McKinsey in their report saying that early lessons from China suggest that 3 to 6 percentage points of online market share will be sticky, driven by older generations, newly comfortable with digital channels, and by new consumer segments. But some who were new to online shopping experienced considerable difficulties, whether technological in nature, or finding out of stocks, or higher prices, or had to deal with extremely long delivery times, all of which could drive them back to brick and mortar stores and discourage them from trying e-commerce again anytime soon. And as many of us get tired of our world existing online 24/7, be it for work, school, socialization, entertainment, or more, we would seek in-person, offline engagements wherever we can find them. And shopping for groceries could be an easy and accessible way to get that.
Karen, do you agree with this? What is your opinion about the future of brick and mortar grocery shopping versus online?
I agree with it somewhat, but one thing that happened during the pandemic is that many really overcame their barriers to first-time trial. The first time you try to shop online, it's kind of a pain. You have to find your brand, you have to find the product that you're looking for. There's lots of searching, it's very unfamiliar. But during the pandemic, people had to go through this, and online shopping is likely going to net out with kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach, where a lot of people adopted it. They tried it out. They have now done it a few times, and they found that it's really super easy for stock up staples. Yet the in-store experience is missed. So I see a lot of consumers going to a blended combination where they do some things online, but still go back to the store to get those things that they really miss and that they really want, especially things like fresh produce, and then net out with more online shopping, but the regular grocery store is not going away.
Thank you. So besides where people choose to shop, there are also some emerging trends about which types of products shoppers are opting for. And one aspect is the strength of top-tier brands at this time, which runs counter to some shoppers looking for value given the tough economic conditions some are facing. Jonathan, can you discuss how those are shaking out?
Right now, shoppers want to get in and out of the store as quickly as possible for a lot of the reasons we touched on earlier. And with that, they tend to reach for what is familiar or the products that are most readily available. And both of those fuel the buying of leading brands because they are the ones that are both most familiar and the ones that are most prevalent on shelf. At the same time, the coronavirus recession, as it's come to be known, is forecast to be the worst in several decades. And that means businesses and consumers will be cash-strapped for quite some time. And as a result, they'll probably forego buying luxuries and be shopping for lower-priced necessities for the foreseeable future. Interestingly, this quote from Hanneke Faber, President Foods and Refreshment at Unilever, straddles both sides of this consideration set. As she says, people will go back to big, trusted brands. They simply can't afford to spend money on products they're not sure of.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And Karen, where do you think things will net out in terms of the choice between top tier and value?
I definitely think it's going to be a zero-sum game, because while the recession will increase consumers' concerns about their pocketbook, and there will be many that will be looking for private label and value brands, there'll be a hangover from COVID where people are going to be increasingly concerned with safety and health. And those are things that come with the trust of name brands. So net, I don't think there's going to be a huge shift towards private label.
So another dichotomy that is worth mentioning is the good old established and iconic brands and disruptive players and new product developments. Jonathan, do you think being in a crisis mode for a prolonged time pushes us more in one direction or the other?
Many are taking comfort in eating foods that they recall from their childhoods, which seem like a simpler or safer time. Or they're opting for the products that they're just used to and don't need to give a lot of thought to in terms of shopping for them or using them. And that's helpful at a time of a lot of stress and uncertainty and complication. But it's also worth noting that for some, using products that were popular during a crisis might remind them of negative feelings connected to being quarantined, and they'll avoid these when things get back to normal. And when we can linger a bit in stores, even though no one ever wants to take too long doing their grocery shopping, shoppers will be better able to find new types of products and variations on old standbys. And they'll be eager to do so, having become bored with the routines they had to endure during the worst days of the crisis. Some product innovations have become big in the marketplace these days at breakneck speed. For example, Chobani's venture into the oat milk domain, which is currently the second in sales and holds a fifth of the U.S. oat milk market.
Yeah, Chobani is a great example, and they recently also expanded into the probiotic beverages domain. However, this might be a scary time for brands to try to innovate. But Karen, you've had a lot of experience developing innovations and launching new products. How do you think the crisis will impact their success going forward?
I think there is still space for innovation for all brands, especially existing brands, and really it's the more familiar, the better. During times of crisis and in recession, people are familiar with comfortable products and flavors that they can turn to both for comfort and for reassurance that they're not going to be wasting their money because they're more concerned about money. But at the same time, when you can't afford to go and do all the things you want to do with entertainment or travel, and that is likely going to last just because of the recession, let alone the fact people may still be afraid of getting sick. The ability to try new things at home is really a potential source of that entertainment. And if it's grounded in the familiar, the more the better. For example, Johnsonville developed sausage strips, which is basically sausage in the form of bacon that you use and cook like bacon. Sorry for the gratuitous plug, but it's a great example of something that is a little bit adventurous but very familiar for consumers. And we've been crazy enough to try to launch this in a pandemic, and it's actually doing well. And I think it is because it's that new twist on the familiar that is making it successful.
Yeah, that's a great example. I think it hits the right balance of familiar and new. So this next section is something that since March, I've experienced both ends of. So indulging in comfort foods on the one hand and striving to eat better on the other. So Jonathan, could you tell us more about how these behaviors are playing out in the market?
Now more than ever, the average consumer is torn between choosing what feels good kind of products and those that are good for you. We've seen that as much as 35% of Americans have tried new healthy foods during the outbreak, followed closely, about 29%, by those that have tried new snack and junk food brands. This tension between shopping for products that make ourselves feel better in the moment and those that we think of as being healthier for our benefit for the future is shaping how we spend our money, and it's crucial for brands to learn about. People have been rewarding themselves for the sacrifices they've been making and paying less attention to the calorie counting they had been doing pre-COVID and just unwilling to forego taste and indulgence. Many of them are just indulging with foods that they've cut back on in the past because they want to relieve stress, or just going with the flow, eating that big bag of chips as they're sitting watching the latest movie on Netflix. But eventually they could return to their prior behaviors of buying less processed, healthier versions of meal staples as routines become more like they were pre-COVID and consumers opt once again for relatively healthy food options. In addition, the crisis has shed light on the benefits of healthy eating and practicing good health in general as a way to be less vulnerable to the effects of the virus or other illnesses. And that could continue to be an important consideration going forward. These two quotes from leading business executives demonstrate the diversity of opinion on these two aspects. John Nudi, President, North America Retail General Mills, says They've seen all of their categories go up, including dry packaged dinner mixes such as Hamburger Helper. There are a lot of people who thought its best days were way behind us. In contrast, Hanneke Faber from Unilever says that they've seen higher sales of products such as Lipton Immune Support, as well as drinks that contain zinc and vitamin C. And the company is moving quickly to roll these out around the world, with health remaining a priority for product innovation, she said.
Karen, what are your thoughts on this?
Actually, I think comfort is going to reign supreme. During times of financial crisis, people don't want to try expensive things that are unfamiliar. They're looking for comfort in the most easy, simple ways. And something on your dinner table or a snack is going to be a lot more comforting when you're worried about so many other things during a recession. So I don't see a huge return to better for you products in the immediate future.
Thank you both for your comments. This was great. I would like to ask you one more thing. What are some of the conclusions you would like to share with our audience? Can you offer some advice or tips? Karen, would you go first?
I think one key thing that you really need to take away from this conversation is that the recession that's going to follow COVID isn't going to be the same type of recession that we went through in the 2000s. It's really going to have a hangover from COVID where people are still going to be concerned about health and safety. So some of the very traditional recession behaviors are going to be moderated by those concerns. And we need to think about that when we think about how consumers are going to behave.
Jonathan?
In these unprecedented times, there's no clear roadmap of what is to come or how best to navigate the journey. The best strategy is to continue to try to understand how consumers are thinking, feeling, and behaving, even as it all continues to evolve, and develop product offerings that fill unmet needs or are better suited to their desires in the moment. It's important to know that research conducted at this time can be trusted to provide meaningful insights. We at EyeSee have validated that study results obtained recently align with those obtained a year ago or more. The key is to use fully vetted methods that will include a sufficiently large sample to be projectable and allow for statistical testing and subgroup analysis. The best methods include a combination of measures implicitly assessing behavioral responses to stimuli, such as new products, ads, or package designs, and including sufficient explicit measures to help explain the findings. This way, the results can be relied on to predict in-market performance and uncover potential areas of improvement to make pre-launch, thereby increasing the likelihood for success. And with all of this, we can all do well and hopefully continue to be well.
Thank you both again, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. I hope you will share your thoughts on this topic with us, and I hope that consumer research will, as always, serve as a beacon for decision-making during these turbulent times. Stay safe, and stay tuned for our next session, which will tackle SKU rationalization and planogram optimization in the circumstances of the COVID crisis, as we present the results of a case study we conducted on over 1,000 respondents.